Look, I get the title of this video sounds a little bit ridiculous. Give me a chance to explain what I mean. I do not think that there is reason for significant concern in Boston. My thought process is that the expectations for this team coming off of a dominant NBA championship win last season were higher by a significant margin than any other team in basketball. And I just don't feel like they're quite living up to those expectations this season. Am I concerned about their viability as a contender? No. Am I a little concerned about how they might match up against a team like Cleveland or a team like OKC or even other Eastern Conference teams like New York, Boston, or New York, Orlando, Milwaukee? A little bit. I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little bit concerned. Tonight's loss was bad, a really bad loss, a home loss against a Sacramento Kings team that did not have De'Aaron Fox, and Domantas Sabonis just bullied them. 10 to 15, 28 rebounds, 23 points. I mean, legitimately bullied them. It was embarrassing. He just dog walked Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. And the thing is, this Celtics team was entirely healthy tonight. They were totally healthy, not missing a single important rotation piece, and they get blown out by a mediocre Sacramento Kings team that, yes, has played better as of late, but also didn't have their best player. This is a little bit of a concerning loss, and look, they're 27-11. They're clearly an elite team. Every advanced metric you look at shows them as an elite team, and I'll talk about that in this video. They're great, but there's a little cause for concern about the whole repeat strategy and agenda for this year, and I think it's worth talking about. So before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I'm uploading every single day, multiple videos a day. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. I think we can all agree last year, the Celtics' big six of their starting lineup and Al Horford was the deepest big six we've ever seen in the history of the NBA. And in all honesty, they still are. That is an incredible top six, but the gap between this Celtics roster, even with the high level play of Peyton Pritchard, another really good, capable role player in Sam Hauser, even with that top eight, it feels like the gap between them and the other top contenders, namely the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, has shrunk significantly. And that's more a credit to Cleveland and OKC and what they've been able to do than it is a diss on Boston. I still think Boston's great, and I don't think they've really done anything wrong. But it just feels so different than it did last year. Last year felt so effortless for the Celtics, and maybe they're just not taking the regular season quite as seriously. But recently, there's been a couple of questionable losses and a couple of understandable losses as well, but just some moments, like 27 points in the second half against OKC. Look, I get OKC is an incredible team, but their stars, I mean, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jrue Holiday, and Al Horford were a combined 0 for 19 in the second half. They really struggled in a lot of ways in a playoff type atmosphere in that game. And like a loss like tonight, does it matter very much in the scheme of things? No, it's one regular season loss in an 82 game season, but it feels like it matters. And they've shot, honestly, recently pretty poorly. 27% from three tonight. They have not shot the three ball as well in general as of late. And we'll talk about that shooting stuff more here in a little bit. But you look at the numbers, like obviously they're great, but I'm a little concerned. Number one, Jaylen Brown, he's 24 a game still, but he's still 2-to-1, not a 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio, not ideal there. And he's shooting 32.5% from three on 6.8 attempts a game. That is not great. Jrue Holiday was the best corner three-point shooter in the entire league last season, 34% from three this season. And look, he's still one of the best defensive guards in the league, but he is 34. He's getting to the point where a little bit of regression would not be shocking. Al Horford, still one of the best, most versatile bench pieces in the league, has had an incredible career and is a great veteran. But I think there is a certain amount to be said for his lack of physicality as a rebounder anymore. He's maybe a step slower than he used to be on the defensive end of the court. Still a really useful, really great player, but maybe not quite the player he once was. Kristaps Porzingis, look, I get he hasn't played much this year, but he's only 33% from three in 14 games. It's a small sample size, yes, but number one, guy can't stay healthy. He's only played 14 games this season. He can't seem to play in back-to-back games to save his life. I'm not talking about a back-to-back. I'm talking about playing in back-to-back games. He just can't stay on the court. And I mean, Peyton Pritchard has been awesome, like legitimately incredible. 6th man of the year candidate for a reason, having a great year. Sam Hauser still playing his role at a very high level. Jason Tatum, the efficiency from three could be maybe slightly better if you're looking for things to nitpick, but overall, career high in rebounding. He's averaging 28 a game, 5.5 assists, having himself a heck of a season. Derek White is one of the best role players in all of basketball, a guy who would be an all-star, I believe, on any other team, averaging 17 a game on 39% from three and 59% from 2-point range. But my biggest concern with this team is, as a team, they're a 36.5% three-point shooter. That is not bad at all. But you look at the shooting numbers, they lead the league by far in three-point attempts per game, which we already knew was going to happen. And that's not super concerning because we knew that was going to be the case. Over 5 attempts a game more than the rest of these teams, and over 7 attempts a game over pretty much the entire league. And it's a bigger margin than that over much of the league. But when you look at the percentage, in all honesty, they're only 11th-ish in the league. Like, that's not great. And you look at the 2-point percentage, and they're second in the league in 2-point percentages, yet they shoot the least 2s in the league. And look, I get that the 2-point percentage is higher because of the 5-out ability of this team, but I sometimes do think that they should drive the ball a little bit more and take 2s a little bit more because they're so efficient at it. And everybody knows the threat of the 5-out offense opens up the lane for this team. Maybe take advantage of that a little bit more and maybe take a little bit less threes. I know threes are a highly efficient shot, but I sometimes think they limit themselves a bit because what can happen is a night like tonight where you're 27% from 3 and you basically shoot yourself out the game because half your shot attempts are 3s, and yet you don't really make very many of them, and it puts them in a rough spot. And the thing is, look, I could be wrong, but I feel like as of late, they have struggled shooting the 3 ball a decent chunk more. So let's look at their last 15 games just to look at that stat. And in the last 15 games, I'm right. They're down to 35.5% from 3, right around the bottom 10 in the league, while still shooting the most 3s per game of any team in basketball. These cold stretches are concerning because if this happens in the playoffs and they go cold from 3, that is a serious concern that could really wreck a series, especially against an elite Eastern Conference team like the Cavs, or even just a super feisty, high energy, effective team like the Magic. For example, Orlando runs 3-point shooters off the line better than any team in basketball by a significant margin. That could be a weird matchup for Boston because it might take away from what they do best, which is that floor spacing and 3-point shooting, and might limit their offense a bit. And so I'm a little bit concerned because they've been so good from 2, and yet they shoot so few of them, and they're so reliant on the 3 ball. Look, it works, clearly. When you look at the advanced numbers, they are still an elite team. Second best offensive rating in the league. Defensive rating is 7th in the league. Not quite as great as last year, but still really good. They still have the 3rd best net rating in the league at 9.7, which is still really a historically great net rating. Like, they are a great team. Again, I don't want to sit here and act like I am bashing the Celtics. I'm just a little bit concerned that this year feels to be that they're almost a little bit behind compared to OKC and Cleveland anyway. And look, I think people are giving them the benefit of the doubt because of last year, and deservedly so. They were so dominant last year. I think there's an expectation that they'll just be able to turn it on and they'll be fine. But they've lost 5 of their last 10 games. They're just kind of lingering in that second seed, slowly falling further and further behind the Cavs, who just refuse to lose games. And like, I'm a little concerned because they're gonna have to beat Cleveland in Cleveland to make the finals this year. Cleveland is so good. I'm not sure how that's gonna happen. Like, I really was so confident about this Celtics team going into the season. And I thought they were going to honestly, I thought they were going to waltz to the finals again this year before the year. My prediction was that they would lose to the Thunder in the finals, but I thought they were going to get to the finals relatively easily. I'm not super confident that's going to happen. I'm not totally confident that they match up great against the Knicks, the Bucks, or the Magic either. I would not be stunned if they lost a series against those teams. Now, I would still pick them to beat any of those teams, but I'm not 100% confident that they would win those series. And look, they're still great. I would not be shocked at all if we fast forward to the middle of June and they're holding up the title. Like, I would not be surprised at all. But I also wouldn't be surprised at all if that's not the case. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're not even in the finals. So it's going to be an interesting second half of the season to follow for Boston, but they're definitely in a little bit of a funk by Boston standards. It's going to be interesting to see what they do to potentially pull themselves out of this, and if there's any roster moves to be made around the deadline either, to potentially add one more small piece, because they do feel like they're only 8 deep. And it feels like injuries could really test the depth of this team come playoff time this season. So I'm just a tiny bit concerned. That's all I'm saying. This isn't code red. We don't need to press the panic button, nothing like that. Celtics are still a great team. I'm just a little concerned, and I think it's worth talking about. So I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.